What we're going to do is continue, hopefully, from where you remember we left off, vulnerability assessments. If we go back to the start of this, what do you have to compromise something? Huh? You have to have a foothold. How are we going to get the foothold? Root kit, back door. What do each of these things require? Huh? A hold. You're taking me in a circle. Access. What's going to allow you to get access? We're going to get to the word I want in a few minutes. Thumb drive. Open port. What would those things be called? Say it again, James. A hole. What is a hole called? Vulnerability. Yay. How are we going to find those vulnerabilities? There are a number of ways. The flash drive is kind of an interesting one, isn't it? An interesting vulnerability, I think. Because what's the vulnerability? That you can actually plug it in. Can you stop that?
Yes.
Sure. All you do is set a policy.
Or you can unplug the jumpers.
Or you could what?
Unplug the jumpers.
Unplug the jumpers. That's right. Turn it off physically. Have a policy that doesn't allow it. The policy probably would be better in our circumstance because that would then allow us to turn it off for some people and turn it on for others.
Yes.
You may or may not want to do that. The government, as I understand it, U.S. government has turned off access to all USB devices. It kind of makes sense. So how much information can you take out of a place on a flash drive? I know, it depends on how big it is, but what the 4 gig, 8 gig, 6 gigs are like, 4 gigs are like what, $14, $12, something like that now? How many documents, how many secret documents could you get on this thing to sell to WikiLeaks? No, a whole lot. So they just don't allow access to flash drives. But the vulnerabilities that we're going to talk about here are those that are available via the network, from the internet, from the network itself. Vulnerabilities, what are we going to do? And then if we have a vulnerability, what do we have to have in order to be able to take advantage of that vulnerability? Is just because a port is open, does that mean that you're automatically vulnerable? No. I think you have to have some type of exploit in order to take advantage of that. So this one, define risk and risk management. What's the risk? What's the risk here for us allowing you to plug in flash drives? Not a real question to answer, but a rhetorical question. But would that be a risk? Is there some sort of risk there? Piracy, storms. What about viruses? Have we reduced the risk of you installing a virus by restricting what you can actually do on the computer? Yeah. What you actually have access to? We hope so. So define risk and risk management. And you guys have a risk management course, I believe. Is that a true statement? The bachelors do, I know. I guess that the associates don't. We'll get a little bit of each in here. What is risk? How much risk are you willing to take? How much risk are you willing to take driving your car? Do you take risks when you drive your car? Every day. How much risk? Some people take more risks than others, right? Going through the yellow lights, passing in the no passing zones, driving 70 in a 30 zone. What kind of risk are you willing to take? Same thing with networking. Do we take risks? Absolutely. The components of risk management: list and describe vulnerability scanning tools, and they're going to have you, they've got you doing 2 and I've got you doing 1. The one I'm going to have you do is Nmap. There's a step-by-step lab for this. The ones that they have you do are Nessus and LandGuard, I think, which are really cool tools, but they ain't cheap. Actually, let me back off on that a little bit. Nessus is free for individual use, but it's pay for company use. What it does is looks for vulnerabilities, and I'd like for you to actually, they go through and have you install this stuff and do some basic stuff. I'd like for you to really scan some things like scan 1060, 66, 253, and I think I said that in the document. I'm trying to put documents in for each of these things. See what ports are open. What can you do with this thing? One of them allows you to, LandGuard is really a great tool. It allows you to even install updates on the machines as long as you have the authority to install those updates. What kind of updates are there? Is the machine up to date? You can then force updating. So there are lots of tools available, and that's what this looks at. Nmap is a basic port scanner. Command line, there's a GUI version. I think the GUI version is on the default gateway. When you install it, it also installs it in an Nmap folder that you can use at the command line. Does a lot for you. One of the things it'll do is it goes out and tries to make a best guess at what the operating system is, and it makes a best guess based on the ports that are available. Can you classify a computer by using a protocol analyzer and the ping command as to whether it's a Linux machine or a Windows machine? What will? Now, ping won't. Wireshark won't tell you, but can you tell? Fingerprinting, yeah. Yes, you can, because when you ping these things, the data content of Linux is different than the data content of Windows. One of them's got numbers and one of them's got letters, and I don't honestly remember which is which. But we have those things. List, describe vulnerability scanning tools, define penetration testing. Penetration testing is, once we've done this, found the vulnerabilities, is there now an exploit? Can we take advantage of these things? And is it just a matter of taking advantage of this? I was reading an article, a course or something, that I don't remember where it was, probably one of those videos, that guy was talking about they had been hired to do some vulnerability testing on this company, and they started driving up the company, and they noticed that the loading dock was open. So they drove up the loading dock, did the ninja wave with their badges that they'd made. I don't know if they actually did that or not. Walked into the company. They had these locked doors. People let them in. People held the door to let them into the knock. Helped them up the elevator. Went into the vice president of whatever who had hired them to do this, called up the help desk and said, this is whoever. I forgot my password. I need you to reset it now. Morale beat them into resetting the password. Said that the people even gave them a trash can that they carried the stuff out of the building with. Penetration testing. How vulnerable are you with the weaknesses? Because you can close down, make your network portion of your network, the stuff that's seen outside. That makes a lot of sense, right? The network portion. The visible portion of your network, really, really secure. But if all the other things aren't in place, does it do you a whole lot of good? Well, somebody can just walk in back to the Australian servers. Hey, there's no need in hacking these servers if I can just walk in and take the server out, pick it up and take it out of the building, then I got as much time as I want. But it's a whole. It is a whole. It's not just one item. This is one item we're going to look at. Penetration testing. So risk management, one of the most important assets in any organization possesses is its data. And the first step in this thing is to determine what we're trying to protect. I mean, what are you trying to protect with security? The network. What does that mean? All your proprietary data, customer data, credit card information. What about your devices? What about your people? What are the threats to all of those things? What are the threats around here? Strangers come in and walk off with stuff. Walk off with computer. Depends on what part of the network we're trying to do. What about some basic things like fire, flood? What about power failure? Are all of those things something that needs to be addressed when you're doing risk management? I know we always think about the guy in the ski mask coming in, or the hacker hacking away, right? Like in the movies where they're just typing real fast and, oh, I'm in. You believe that? Do you believe that now? I'm in? Can you find the information? Can you really find the information? Not that quick. I agree with that.
I was trying to crack one yesterday.
Yeah. And you got a password, right? You got a
years to get it.
Yeah, 27 years there. It might or might not take that long.
You think your computer
I would challenge you then to, let's see if you can get Mr. Geiss's password and crack it.
You get expelled.
Huh?
Then you get expelled.
Now, do you think you can even find it?
You can't get on this portion of it.
Aha, I can't get on his portion of the network. So subnetting kind of makes a little more sense now, doesn't it? Can you get it? Can't even see it. What if you could compromise the switch? Different situation then.
Access to the computer.
Different situation then. How far did Can't Enable go?
First the switch. First subnet.
First subnet. Went to the default gateway. Because what did we capture? What did we capture? Traffic destined for the default gateway. So what we did was capture the information on that subnet. So all this, easy to do this, easy to do that, maybe it is. Is it easy to actually get to those things? Is it? Then you're going to have, by the end of the week, Mr. Geiss's password for me, even if it's just a hash, right?
No, just not to get across the subnet now. To another subnet now.
As long as people are cooperative, it's really easy, isn't it?
That's what I said, just walk in the office over there.
Just walk in the office over there and plug in your laptop, right?
That's right. I'll have access to it.
Ah, layer 2 security, huh? So is layer 2 security, can layer 2 security be a big deal?
Walk in there, talk to him, and stick a thumb drive, stick a sniffer in the back of it.
Sniffer in the back of them, I always just do a keyboard logger, keystroke logger.
And he don't, and then he won't know. We don't have access to install the software.
Don't have what?
We don't have access to install the software.
Install the software on the computer, yeah. Hardware keystroke logger, you probably wouldn't need to do anything, would you?
Nope.
But what if it comes up and says, I didn't put this USB device in?
If he does. If it's the one that plugs to the one that's in between it, he might not even notice it.
That's true. Could be. Could be. But as we go through some of these things, vulnerability, is that a vulnerability? Is that part of risk management? Should that be part of risk management? And how can you mitigate, we'll try to use that term, mitigate that circumstance? What could you do in the mitigation world for some of that to reduce the risk?
We can have the CPU in a box.
Got a CPU in a box? What about just some basic training? What are you looking for? What are the indications? What should you be worried about? I mean, what should you be worried about? My wife's getting to where she's worried about everything now.
You done made her paranoid?
No, it's not from that. Well, I guess I kind of have. She got an email the other day that somebody had typed in a bunch of email addresses wrong and got a bounce, obviously, because the email addresses were wrong. And then they got the email addresses right and just forwarded the old message with the wrong email addresses. Oh, I got a problem here. I got all the wrong email addresses. No. I said, well, no, not really. Say, whoever, just a poor typist. They got the bounce, but instead of just resending the message, they forwarded the bounce with the original email enclosed. So what are you looking for? What is the threat? What is the risk? They have these really cool fake antivirus things out there, right? Pop up, your computer is infected. Not unless I let you on.
Click on that, and the one that gets me is the one, like we'll have Windows 7, and then it'll open up an Explorer browser, and it'll show a default XPM. I wrote that in the form.
Yeah.
And then the ones that clone the GUI of AVG or network security essentials.
Yeah. Yeah. They're tough once they get on. They are tough to get off. Data, protecting the data is important, and I think that the first paragraph, the little story that they love to tell, and some of they're pretty good, are it's really a business, I think it would have been a better story in business continuity, which says that the people that work at this company came to work one Friday morning and the building had burned down overnight. And the president of the company talked to the secretary and said, you know, we really got a problem here. He said, well, have you been making the backups that I have asked you to? Yes, religiously, I've been making the backups every day. Well, then, we'll get them. Well, I don't think we can do that because they're stored in the desk next to the computer. What are you going to do? What's the risk? What's going to happen? And that's what we're really talking about in a lot of risk management.
Yes. Since 9/11, there's companies now that actually, if something happens like that, they can actually go set up shop within 30 minutes and be back.
Yeah. Well, there were companies that did that at 9/11. Some of the mutual funds actually opened the next day in New Jersey. Called a hot site. Yep. Hot site is one that's got everything running. It's got basically a mirror of everything. One of the problems with 9/11, most of those companies were involved with money, so they had a responsibility to have backups, and they had companies come in and do the backups. The problem was it was so big that a lot of the backups that were stored off-site in the same area got destroyed also because of the enormousness of the situation. So what is off-site? How far off-site do you need these things to be? Data is underestimated. Why is the data important? The data is the business. And this company went out of business, and there is a statistic someplace that 90% of the companies that lose all their data go out of business within just a very few months before they restart. They said these guys basically put an ad in the paper that says, if you owe us money, come pay. Yeah, I'm sure everybody lined up to do that, aren't you? But the data is the business. Without the data, how are you going to stay in business? I mean, the data here, kind of simple things. If we didn't have the data, if we didn't have your names and academic record, what are we going to do? What courses have you had? How are you going to graduate if there's no record of what courses you've had? How are you going to be put into a class if there's no record of which courses that you've had and which courses that you need? The data. If you're a dentist and your data all goes away, that would be all of your clients, probably all of your x-ray records, all of the medical records. What happens? How do we protect those things? What are the issues here? Begin with understanding the risks and risk management. What are the risks? And when you do these risks, you kind of got to get, I guess, out of the box, get a little weird sometimes. What if this happens? What could happen? Is anything so bizarre that it won't happen in this world? Yeah, maybe, but a lot of odd things really do happen. Information security or risk is a likelihood that a threat agent will exploit a vulnerability. A lot of good terms in there, right? Huh? That's probably all in the Security Plus test, right? What? Threat agent will exploit. What is a risk? What's a risk? What's a threat agent? In information security, a risk is a likelihood that a threat agent. What's a threat agent? Huh? Bad guy, right? The person can carry out something. Well, exploit, another good word. What does exploit mean? Use, take advantage of, right? A vulnerability. Is something going to happen just because it is a vulnerability? Do people always take advantage of vulnerabilities? Are there vulnerabilities that people haven't taken advantage of? Is it really a vulnerability?
I was saying something about his shoes and stuff got stolen. I was like,
Shoes got stolen.
Got a soft top on a Jeep. Just like
Soft top on a Jeep.
They zipped it, thank God.
Instead of cutting it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a vulnerability in this circumstance, right? But accept the risk. You actually, and we'll get to the term here in a minute, you actually mitigate the risk. Because I bet you got insurance, don't you?
Yeah, I ain't insurance.
Well, actually, I probably can't. We had kind of, and I'll get ahead of the lecture here. Circumstance happened at a hotel that it was one of those that they make you let them park your car, no, so they can get tips, I guess. I don't know. Huh? Valet parking mandatory. Well, they have these signs up so don't leave anything in the car. My son got a little in a hurry, this when he was younger, and left his iPod in the car. And when we went back to the car, it's not there. The insurance company said, we're not going to cover it because anybody could claim that was in there. You've got to prove that it was there. You've got to prove that the shoes are there. What kind of risk are they taking?
The easiest way is if they do damage to your vehicle.
Yeah, but then you got to show the damage. You got to show the damage. Probably wouldn't have been covered anyway because of the value. And then again, I'm ahead of this stuff. Do we accept part of the risk? Do you have a deductible? You don't know? You don't know. I have a deductible.
I'm sure I do.
Yeah, most people do because if you don't have a deductible, it's outrageous. 500, 250, 1,000, whatever. That's usually for a collision deductible, and things that are stolen have a limit. So we accept that amount of the risk, and the insurance company accepts the rest of the risk. So we're trying to give away some of it. How could he reduce the risk, mitigate the risk of somebody stealing his shoes out of his Jeep with a soft top on it? Buy a hard top? Don't put the shoes in there. Each of them would do that, wouldn't it? Or only park the car in a monitored area. What did he say? Put a pit bull in the back. But there are a lot of ways to do those things, to mitigate the risk, reduce the risk. More generally, a risk can be defined as an event or condition that could occur. What could happen to us? And I heard Adam talking earlier. He said, I have a stereo in the car, true? Or do you have a stereo that didn't take it? Why didn't they take the stereo? Is it mounted?
It is, but it's not hard to get out.
It is, but they don't know that. Maybe. Is it one of those that has the, if you take it out, it blows up? No? Because what they do with the new ones to reduce the risk of stealing stereos. When I was a kid, boy, stealing, it was tape decks in. If you put a tape deck in and you weren't real careful, you could,
Have a code.
Have a code.
Some of it's in the manual in the car. So
Yeah, I know.
If you steal the stereo,
You better take the manual along with it because it's got the code to make it work, to activate it. So they have taken some steps to try to reduce the risk of people, the attractiveness of these things. Does occur, then it's a negative impact. So what we're doing when we're doing is risk management, what could happen. And these are one of the, what could happen in that you kind of got to start thinking like the thief. Start thinking like the cracker. Are hackers bad guys?
Not always.
Not always. Hackers, by definition, are really the good guys. How do all of these vendors find what's wrong with their software? Usually hackers, and they tell them what's wrong and give them X amount of time to fix it, and then they release it to the public. Crackers are criminal hackers. Those are really the people that go after gain. Reverse engineering, they do a lot of that too. Risk generally denotes the potential negative impact to an asset, and that's true, right? If we talk about risk, and when we were talking about risk, thinking about risk, what did you think about when we were talking about risk and risk management? All the bad things that could happen. What could happen? What are some of the risks in this room even? Oh, we got a smoke alarm anyway. What do you think these little solid pieces are? What do you think those are? Sprinklers. What's the risk if that sprinkler system goes off? It trashed everything in here. So, but what if you don't have the sprinkler system? Fire could spread. So, zoned if you can. So it doesn't go off. So if it goes off in this room, it doesn't go off in the whole building. Are there other types of fire suppressants that could be put into the building, could be put in the room other than a water sprinkler? Because water sprinklers are not real good for electronics, are they? I think halon is, there's something similar to it, but halon, as far as I know, is verboten because it works. You know, it does damage to the ozone. It was really a cool one because it didn't kill you like CO2 when it got released, and it put the fires out. I mean, you couldn't stay in it forever, but you could. It really worked well. That's what we had on the in the engine compartments and the generator compartments, gas turbine compartments on the gas turbine powered ships was a halon. I'm sure it's not there anymore. But a halon fire suppressant system.
What's it do to flush out all that?
I think it works on the free radicals. I know. In the fire triangle, there's actually 4 sides. There's a thing called the free radicals. If you stop the free radicals, you stop the fire. You know,
without oxygen, you can't have a fire.
That's true, but without oxygen, you can't breathe either, can you?
Right.
The advantage, the big deal about halon was that you could release it into a compartment and it didn't kill the people that were in the compartment.
The rehab lady, he works over at Brilliant, and they're not or whatever. Like if there's a fire, it actually sucks all the oxygen out of the room. And if she was telling me when they first built it or whatever, if anybody's in the room, you have to hold the button to keep all the oxygen from coming out. The phone was all the way across the room to call somebody to come like that.
So somebody didn't do a good idea on the risk assessment there, did they?
You need 2 people.
You need 2 people. Either that or you need emergency. Either that or you need emergency breathing devices.
There's actually 4 other servers and stuff.
What about emergency breathing devices? Have these things kind of like, I mean, the firemen use the backpack ones, but we used to have these little things where they have a canister on them, good for about, I don't know, 8 minutes or something like that you put on. You got 8 minutes worth of air. That's not long, but it's sure long enough to get out of that room and all the oxygen has been sucked out of it. Risks cannot be entirely eliminated. Would you agree with that? How would you entirely eliminate the risk of driving your car?
Just park it.
Just park it. But it's not very useful then, is it? The risk of walking, or we're going to take other risks. You could make it much smaller. Years ago, I saw an article where a guy in California had taken a Sherman tank and put wheels on it and was driving it, took the turret off. Did he reduce his risk of driving? Did he eliminate his risks? No, because if he drives off a canyon, he's still going to be in trouble, isn't he? Drives off a highway. So realistically, we can't do that. It would cost too much. And how much does it cost to drive that thing? How much would it cost to drive that thing today? Yeah. Rather, some degree of risk must always be assumed. Risk management, systematic and structured approach to managing potential for loss and its related threats. So risk management is when we sit down and say, this is what we're trying to protect, and what we're going to do is say, this is my most valuable resource, and work our way down to where we have our least valuable resource, because there's a finite amount of money that anybody's going to pay for anything. How much does it cost? Are we paying $10,000 to protect a $100 resource? If we were assigning importance to the computers, then we probably would put the servers at a 5 and put these machines back here that have been stacked back here forever, maybe at a 1 or a 0, right? How valuable are they? Are we going to expend a lot of effort to protect them? Probably not. First step is to determine the assets that need to be protected. This is not as easy a job as you might think. What do we got to do in order to determine the assets that need to be protected? Got to classify them. What do you got to have before you can classify them? You got to have a list of them. You have to have an inventory. You think that'd be easy, right? It's not. Because stuff's always changing. Inventory, what do you have? What are the physical devices? What's installed on them? What's in them? Huh? Change management policy. Well, how easy is it to just keep track of the computers in this building, do you think? If you started from day one? It's not as bad as it used to be, but let's start from day one, and let's say that I come into this room and we don't have a computer at one of the desks. And I go look in maybe Mr. Loomis' room and say, oh, he's got a computer there that nobody's using. So I pick the computer up and bring it over here. Now you go into his room and say, somebody stole a computer. They didn't really steal a computer, did they? It's still in the building. Keeping track of these things can be really, really, really troublesome. What about laptops that you issue to employees? Keeping track of those things. Oh, I just forgot to bring it. I lost it. Oh, I just forgot to bring it today so that you can inventory it. Keeping track. Put GPS on it. How much is it worth? How much is it worth? Risk reward. How much would it cost to put a GPS on one of these things?
Just get them on netbooks.
You get them on netbooks and say, that's okay, it's only $150, right? That may be what you do. That may be what you do.
Just because you know where it might be with GPS, you don't know what they're doing with it.
That's exactly right. Where it is. That's true. Do they have it or do they not have it? Do people report it when it's lost or stolen? You ever seen these things they talk about how many laptops get left in airports? It just amazes me that people actually walk off and leave their laptop in an airport. Maybe I'm just not that accustomed to things like, oh yeah, that's mine, I should take it with me. I mean, I'm paranoid that if I go over one seat, I move the stuff with me. But what are we going to do? The process of inventorying and managing these items. How many of these things do we have? What do we have? How do we keep track of it? And when you talk about machines in a business, you also have to talk about licensing and how much of each software is installed on every computer. Can people put software on the computer? If they do, is it licensed? Is it legal? Because if it's not legal, guess what? What is that? Do care and do care, right? That's the magic word you have to be able to invoke so that you've taken all the precautions. Type of assets, data, hardware, personnel, physical access, and software. Data, kind of obvious. Hardware, kind of obvious. The thing that we really don't think about in many cases is the personnel, the people. What do we need to do to protect the people? The fire alarm systems, the heating and cooling. It'd be pretty uncomfortable in here if they turned the air conditioner or the heating off today all of a sudden, wouldn't it? Computers would like it really well, but we wouldn't. What do you need to do to protect the people? The physical assets different than hardware. Physical assets, the tables, the other physical assets that are available to the company, and then the software. What do you do to prevent A, your software from being pirated, and B, to be sure that the software that's actually put on the machines is legal? All of these things have risks. Along with the assets, the attributes of the assets need to be compiled. The attributes of the assets. What will we talk about? The attributes of the assets. We have a computer. Computer RKE-RM111-002. What does that tell me? What do I need to know about that computer? Does it have a DVD or CD? How much memory's in it? What size of the hard drive? What kind of motherboard's in it? What kind of processor's in it? What kind of inventory? There are a number of softwares available that will inventory your network for you. So you can get a lot of that, as well as what's inside the machines, as long as you have the authority to do the inventory, which means administrative authority typically, because what it does is takes the Windows output and says, yes, this is what's here. One of them is free, and I'll get the name, it's just not coming to you. It has a little issue, though, because it bases its inventory on the NICs. So if you put virtual machines on it, you put VMware on it, how many virtual machines are there, how many NICs are there, so you get more than one of that device. That was the downside of it. But it is free. Really did a neat job. It went out, inventoried, gave you an inventory of what actually is in the machine by subnet. We could go in here and set in all of our subnets, and it would go to the subnets and find the machines that are on a particular subnet. But maintaining that inventory is not as easy as it sounds unless you have something to help you do that. And then we got to determine each item's relative value, because are we going to be able to apply the same protection to every device in the network? Depreciation. Is each of the machines in this building worth the same as every other machine? And we already do some extra protection for the servers, don't we? Put them in an own room and lock the room. We buy them a UPS. Buy them their own air conditioning system. So does every machine have the same value? And that's what the relative value is about. How much are you going to spend to protect a server versus how much you're going to spend to protect a desktop that's only used in an A+ class to take it apart and put it back together. Factors in determining the regular value. How critical is this asset to the goals of the organization? Server would be kind of valuable, wouldn't it? To the goals of the organization, most probably. How difficult would it be to replace it? How difficult would it be to replace a server? If you lost all your information, it'd be really big. So the answer is, depends on what other steps you've taken in risk mitigation. If you don't make backups, is that okay? As long as it doesn't ever crash, it's great. Saved a lot of time. What if it crashes? Then it's not okay. So if, like the secretary, if we make backups and then store it next to the computer, if the hard drive crashes, we're okay. If the building catches on fire, we're probably not okay. What steps can you take to mitigate the risk? How difficult would it be to replace it? How much does it cost to protect it? How much does it cost to make backups? Cost of the media or medium? Have you priced tape drives lately? They're pretty expensive. Yeah. Off-site backups. Are there other ways to do it other than putting it on tape and shipping it out someplace? Huh? DVDs are a really great concept. How much can you get on a Blu-ray DVD? 24 gig. So I'm still going to have to come out at 3 o'clock in the morning to back up my 100 gig hard drive, huh? Now, yeah, you can get a jukebox arrangement, and it probably would do that for you. But how much space? And DVDs is a great concept because they're easy to ship. You don't have, once you get it there, you don't have the magnetism issues that you have with tape. You don't have the stretching issues. Tape stretches, and it can become bad, not really valuable to do the backups with. How much revenue does it generate? And that's all part of back to how valuable is it? What kind of priority are we going to place on this thing? How important is it to the company? And that always comes down to the revenue. These are just some things that could go in the attribute name, equipment name, type, manufacturer, model, part number, inventory tag. Inventory tag number, what should you have to ensure that these things are not double inventoried is a tag number, and there are a lot of places that you can go buy these tags. They're really not all that expensive, so that you can be sure that you've only counted them one at a time. And then what else would I do, I think, is to get a scanner, a scanning gun, so that you can inventory it quickly, because otherwise you're going to have a list and go and cite each of the devices. So more factors: how quickly can it be replaced? What's the cost to replace it? What's the impact to the organization if the asset's unavailable? What's the security implications if the asset's unavailable? Goes back to are we paying $10,000 to protect a $100 device? The data is going to be a really big deal. Well, how much are we going to expend to protect the device itself if we have the data and it can be restored? How much do we really need to do with these things? Threat identification. The next step is to determine the threats from threat agents. Are you guys threat agents? You can be. Could be. James set himself up as a threat agent, didn't he? Or he created a vulnerability last time when he gave Will access to his home directory. So Will was the threat agent, kind of. Was it really a vulnerability? That was a conscious decision. Was there a risk there? Absolutely. Is there a risk? Now we've found a risk, haven't we, to the academic process? Or have we?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because can you share your home directory? What if somebody decided that they wanted to do that and cheat? Back to the story. Don't do it, because the guy that did it applied for a job in the network where the instructor that he cheated on is now the network administrator. But is that a risk? Is it a big risk? Is it?
It could be.
It could be. How many people do you think know that you can do that? Probably the people in this room, plus the ones that were here last time.
Whoever tries to do it.
Whoever tries to do it? You think the nursing students know how to do it? So what's the risk? Yeah, what do you say? They've been doing it like crazy.
Well,
Knowledge is the risk. Now, if you went out and showed them how to do it, we just increased the risk, haven't we? Can we mitigate that risk? Keep them dumb? What if I just go change the permissions? What permission do you have to share something?
No, enterprise.
It depends on which level.
How about full control of the resource?
Only reason because I own those objects.
Because you own those objects. He has administrative authority. You have administrative authority of your home directories. So you can do that. What if we took that full control away and gave you modify? You can share it. You could do everything else, but you couldn't share it. Simple things, and you got to kind of go to odd places, I think, when you're talking about risk and risk management. Are you going to come up with a full list first time around?
No.
Are people always going to find ways to do things?
If they're determined enough.
Hmm?
They're determined enough.
If they're determined enough. I think that you're going to find that people that are determined enough will do that. It's like the guy, and I probably told you this story, in the routers class that probably spent, I don't know, 60 or 70% of the class, instead of doing routing stuff, was looking for an open proxy that he could get through the proxy with. And he failed the class because he didn't do the work, because he was trying to do something. Did he find a way around? In most cases. Yeah, and then you know what? You just go look in his profile and find that address and block it, and then he spends another 3 hours looking for a proxy server, not doing his work.
Did that really happen?
Yes. Did that really happen? I don't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up that I tell you guys about.
Y'all are from your television?
Yeah. I mean, I could make this stuff up, but I'm not imaginative enough to make this stuff up. So, yeah, the stuff that I tell you and the things that people do, and there are reasons for everything. Why this, why that, why whatever else. And over the course of years, a lot of things happen. They're outliers. They're things that don't normally happen. And that's what we're generally looking at here in the threat identification. What's the primary threat? What's the primary threat here, do you think?
Somebody driving through the night.
Somebody driving through the knock? That probably is one, isn't it? Because it's on the outside wall next to the street.
Yeah.
What about somebody walking out of here? Yeah, it's on that wall. What about somebody walking out of here with a computer? It could happen. They think it may have happened once, but it's one of those that computers got moved around so much that unless you've got a really good inventory, you don't know if anything's even missing.
The way the computers are set up, really getting that much information off of them.
I'd say that again.
The way the computers are set up, really getting that much information off of them, right?
No, but you would have you couldn't get the information off of them because everything's centrally stored, generally speaking. And how critical is the information in this building? I'm not talking about in the company, in this building. What kind of information do we actually store here?
Not very. I mean, most of it you give us.
After I started,
Your home directories?
all the grades
All the grades are not here. All the grades are at Virginia Beach. All of your personal data's at Virginia Beach in the database.
Everything basically that is here, we've got access to.
You've got access to, exactly. Yep. A lot of resources are available to. You have access to it. Does everybody in the world have access to it? We hope not. Are there some things that everybody in the world have access to? Yeah, if you go to those how-to videos, do you have to log in to get to them? Some things you do, some things you don't. What's the risk? What kinds of things do you want to allow people to have? Determine the threats from the threat agents. Threat agents need any person or thing with the power to carry out a threat against an asset. They're kind of using the word to define it, aren't they? What does that mean? It means Chris decides to be a bad guy, he can do something bad to us. Is that safe? Way of saying that, because I use bad in there too many times, didn't I? Threat modeling, scenarios of the types of threats that assets can face. Did I construct and let's say that, and they used to have one, your students, let's say that you got a bad grade. And you want to change the grade. What would be your threat modeling? What could you do? First thing you could have done was to do the work to not get the bad grade. But we didn't go there. What do you got to do?
Take one of your dogs hostage.
Take one of your dogs hostage? One of my dogs hostage? Would that work?
I should find out where they're stored at first.
First you got to find out where they're stored. Can I change a grade?
I want you to set up, so.
Hmm?
I should hope so.
Nope. I cannot change a grade. So the next thing you need to find out is who can. Where are they stored? Huh? Take their dog hostage. Who can change the grade? But do you want anybody to know about changing this grade? Because if you took the dog hostage and changed the grade, what's going to happen when the dog gets given back? We change the grade back to an F. So what you want to do is surreptitiously change the grade. And Adam's onto something here. First thing we got to find out is where it's stored. Who can get to it? Then what are you going to do once you find out where it's stored and who can get to it? Now we get Chris involved here, and he's going to work on the password, right? For whoever can do that. Huh? Put a keylogger on the computer. What kind of software do you need to get to that particular location. When you get there, what are you going to do? What if you just waited till somebody walked away from their computer that had the authority to change grade? Then you could just sit down and do it, right? Hmm? Then it's your lucky day. Otherwise, you're going to have to do something else. Get the password. Or you're going to have to bribe somebody. Does that work? All we got to do is a candy bar for the password, right? We determined that already. Say what?
It works in South America.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, help construct scenarios to do this, help to understand who the attackers are and why the attack, what types of attacks might occur. What kind of attacks might occur in a business. Here, can you imagine scenarios? I'm not real imaginative, but what kind of scenarios would we have here? Really?
Don't bribe Chris to get the layout.
The layout? Sure. Could you guys figure that one out, though?
For the most part.
I think you probably could. Hmm?
Project, we need to map the network.
Map the network, and that's one of the first projects that you do, isn't it? In network.
He was pretty skeptical about that. I kind of asked him the first time we had to do that, and he was kind of like started questioning me.
Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Because it's an assignment.
And then he was like, oh, I can answer any questions you have, but he wasn't up to his hand over something to diagram.
Yeah. What other things do they have other than mapping the network? Then they have controls between the networks. What traffic can go across the routers. But what about cheating? Is that one of the things that could work in this? Are there other ways of doing that? Probably, but you know the access to something. What if you were trying to could access all the courses for an instructor? Because I've probably got 10 courses that are available, or most of the tests stored in the course. Go get Chris involved again here so I can get that password for you. What steps have been taken to mitigate that, do you think? Oh, Moodle, you did the Moodle one, right? Tried to go to the other one? To the one that's the real one? What happened?
We try to go to it, or we try to log in?
When you try to log in.
For real, password was the correct one.
Is that everyone correct, or did it say, hey, would you take this key? Would you take this certificate? If you take that certificate, then we're in. But if you don't take that certificate, again, back to an education. Should you expect to see these things? What shouldn't you expect to see in these things? So, threat modeling. What are we going to do? What we're going to do to set these things up? They kind of throw these things in here. Category of threat. The threats that are there. Natural disasters, fire, flood, earthquake. Fire is certainly a realistic threat here, isn't it? Because this is a building. It's got flammable stuff in it, so we could have a fire. Flood. Roanoke's had some pretty significant flooding. Is this an area that's prone to flooding? No, because this isn't in the 100-year floodplain, is it? Are there areas that are in the 100-year floodplain? They got wiped out in 1985.
The 100-year floodplain.
Hmm? The 100-year floodplain is the one that they've calculated will flood every 100 years. That's the risk. The risk is that it will be flooded every 100 years. And generally, if it's in a 100-year floodplain, you have to have flood insurance. It's required. Well, what about a leak from the roof? Is that possible? It used to be pretty regular before they got the roof fixed. Hmm? Broken water main. Yeah, that's the what is it, the Allstate commercial? Won't they just turn the water off? Those people doing that. Broken water main. That's a big one. What about an inadvertent what about an inadvertent sprinkler system? What if somebody does a sprinkler test wrong? Because you have to test those things every so often. What if they do a sprinkler test wrong and decide to flood your building? What are the risks? Coming up with odd things. What about your house? Are there risks there? Sure. Burglary? What do you do? What do you take? What do you do? What steps have you taken to mitigate those risks, to reduce those risks? Shotgun? That could be.
Bird mitigation. We had someone break into our house.
Hmm?
We had someone break into our house about 2 years back, and I was in my room, which is where I keep my shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
I heard him trying to get into the door. Leaned out my door, right, had a clear shot all the way down the hallway, and told them if they moved, they're going to have a
Yep.
chance of lead poisoning.
Yeah, could be. Each of those things. Compromise of intellectual property. None of you guys have ever done that, right? Pirating software. Espionage. A spy steals a production schedule. We have one of those going on right now, right? The Chinese introduced this new fighter aircraft, new stealth aircraft. And how did they get it? Apparently, but I've only seen bits of the story. Apparently, one of them crashed, and people went out and picked up the parts, and the Chinese been trying to buy all the parts ever since. Reverse engineering. Is some of it probably compromised? Absolutely. Extortion. That's when Matt's gonna take my dog. Blackmail me. Extortion.
Well, kidnap your wife, and you might not.
Yeah.
You might not cooperate with it.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't say that.
You listen to me.
Oops, huh?
You don't listen to me, dog, right?
Yeah.
You got a lot. I need vacation.
That's the old one that they kidnap the kid and they call him up and say, and the parents say, hey, I'll take him back for $1,000. Menace the menace type. Hardware failure or errors, network intrusion prevention systems blocks all the network traffic, and there's a lab later on to do a detection system, to do a snort lab to where you look at these things. An intrusion prevention system actually stops what's going on. The detection system, again, detects it. Snort can be either depending on where it's installed. It can be a prevention system if it's installed in line. It can be set up to actually stop these things. Human error, employee drops a laptop in the parking lot. There are a lot of other human errors, all right. What if you just deleted an OU that had 10,000 users in it? Human error. What would have mitigated that? How about that backup? Sabotage or vandalism. Adam's shoes taken out of his Jeep, vandalism. Software attacks, software failures or errors. Technical obsolescence. That never happens to anybody, does it?
What is
That going to where it's unsupportable. Obsolescence is on its way to obsolete. Technical obsolescence. We have a server that we can't upgrade from 2003 to 2008, and we want to go to a 2008 server network. Technical obsolescence. Theft, utility interruption, we talked about that, power's cut off. We had that happen, was it, block before last, right? When they had a power failure because you were on or trying to get on.
I wasn't on there. Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was Thanksgiving, and they had a power failure. Of course, nobody told us about it. They finally called me at, I don't know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon and said, the power went out, and it did go out. And now nothing works. His power's back on, but nothing works. That's when you say, I agree. Well, what do we do? Okay, we're going to let those guys go into the NOC and turn the servers on, right? Because you can configure the servers in the hardware to either come back on or to stay off. And you usually configure them to stay off. What really should have happened is when they lost the power, they should have talked to somebody and then you could shut the servers down. Orderly shutdown. That's all that those UPSs are designed for, but they crashed. Now you got to get them back online. Some of them become issues. Some of them don't become issues. We'll take a break. the attack tree, and this just provides a visual image. Most of us like visuals better than other things. At least I know I do. I love to see things rather than hear about or talk about the tree, but this is the visual image, and what it's going to do is kind of show what's going to happen, except here we're going to steal a car stereo. Actually, that's going to steal Adam's shoes.
Or my glasses.
Or your glasses, whichever one we want to take. Maybe both.
I think they were protein stuff.
So, they did or didn't?
They did.
Goodness. Took your whole gym bag.
There's a ball, man. He's hungry and cold.
Yeah.
He got a protein shake.
Yeah, goodness sakes. But anyway, steal a car stereo. What could you do? Break the glass, but in his case, we didn't have to break the glass. All you do is unzip the top.
Yep.
Steal the key. Could have done that. Carjack. This is more Matt's speed. He's going to steal the dog, so he's going to carjack it.
Or just open the door because they're all unlocked.
Just open the door because they're all unlocked. There is a lot to that, but we haven't done a whole lot for our responsibility to mitigate the risk if we don't lock the car, have we?
That's what I said every day.
Yeah. So those things, we'll presume it was locked. It's just that it was a soft top. Unzipped it and unlocked it. Grab a purse, steal the key, grab the purse or make a copy. And make a copy if we have these, you got all these keys that say do not copy. Anybody ever taken those someplace they do not copy? Did they copy it for you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Some places won't, but you just go to the next one. So you'll find somebody that'll make a copy for you. So, make a copy. Threaten the attendant, blackmail the attendant, or bribe the attendant. That's what you guys were going to do earlier, right? Was bribe somebody to do something, or threaten somebody to do something. So, the attack tree again just lays out what could go on. What if we said cheating? I don't want to harp on that, but that's the academics. So, how could we? What would your threat tree kind of look like with that?
With cheating?
Cheating. Let's say on a practical.
Go back and look at the quizzes.
Because the reason is I want to because I will go back to the one that actually did happen here many years ago,
I gave
which was access.
I gave everybody access to mine.
Yeah, James knows how to run access. He gave everybody access to his home directory.
I have all my files in mine.
And all his files in there. So all you got to do is copy the completed file and turn it in.
But the attributes
show his name. So what could we do with that? What if James didn't want to cheat? What could we do? We could go down here into the blackmail or threaten him, couldn't we? What if he did want to cheat? What if he didn't want to cheat, but now we're going to get Chris involved again. Chris going to get his password and go in to share his home directory anyway. Could you bribe somebody with administrative authority to go in and share his home directory?
We could have it in attributes. Could you just, like, if you needed a document, open and copy the contents of the document, paste it in the new Word document?
Yeah.
His attributes
Yeah.
here, right?
But access becomes a whole different copy and paste issue. You could with a Word document. What does the attack tree look like? All it is kind of a visual representation of the what if, what could happen here. And those of you who have been in the military, you ever play those what if games? We were playing a what if game in 1989 at St. Line Fleet called, what if Iraq invades Kuwait? What are the things that you need to do? We had actually gamed that invasion before it started. So the logistics, at least on the Navy side, wound up pretty good to what ifs, and that's what you're really playing here, or what ifs. Access research and development, database, break WEP, not really all that difficult to do, break WEP. Locate a road access point, and this one's obviously on a wireless. So we're going to break WEP, locate a road access point. Rogue access point. Again, how are we going to mitigate that?
Layer 2 security.
Layer 2 security, and we're going to check for them every once in a while. You're going to use something to scan the wireless airways to see if this thing shows up. Because we had a rogue wireless access point in here a couple weeks ago, didn't we? And nobody noticed. Was that a rogue wireless access point?
Yeah.
Wasn't authorized. It kind of was authorized because they knew I was doing that lab. Well, how hard was it to get it on the network? Not. Easy as pie. Just plug it in. Should it be that way?
No.
Depends on, well, maybe. No, and I say the answer is maybe. Why is the answer maybe? Well, if we really don't care? Should we really not care? Probably not. Should it be configured for more security? Yeah, probably. How hard would it be to configure that for more security? Port access? Pretty easy, isn't it? Turn everything off, turn on the port access, and then turn everything on with a sticky with one MAC address. And what MAC address is going to be allowed? First one that gets in. What does the issue become then? Huh? What about your virtual machines? Do they have their own MAC address? Hmm? Yeah, they have their own MAC address. They have to, otherwise you couldn't find them, could you? So upside, downside. Security is not...
When you copy or whatever, don't they all have the same, and you do them?
Well, it depends on how you start it up. And from experience, when you start it up in a new location, I always tell you it copies it, then it generates a new MAC address. If you don't tell it you copied it, then it uses the same MAC address. And that causes a real mess. Having experienced that, if you have a bunch of machines with the same MAC address, it'll drive you absolutely bananas. Really, because sometimes everything works great and then sometimes nothing works. And then you finally look at the ARP table and say, I have 4 IP addresses in here all with the same MAC address. No wonder it's confused. So on those things, but they're going to have, whatever they are, they're going to have a MAC address. And it has to be different for them to effectively work on a network. It has to be different than all the other ones. So how many are you going to configure? What kind of configurations are you going to do over those things? Steal the password and watch over the shoulder, those sorts of things. Vulnerability appraisal takes a snapshot of the security of the organization as it stands now. Vulnerability appraisal, how secure are we? How secure are you at your house? Should you do a vulnerability appraisal at your house? That's what insurance agents like to do, right? When they come in and assess your security for insurance purposes. That's what we're really talking about there. Every asset viewed in the light of each threat. What is the threat? How many threats do we have? I mean, we got you guys, internal threats, kind of sort of. We got me. Am I a threat agent? Am I a threat?
You can be.
I can be. Huh? What if I decided I was really upset? Would I be a threat?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. What about the new nursing class that just started today? Are they a threat? They could be. But out of ignorance and not out of knowledge, probably. And what have we done to mitigate that threat? That's what policies are about. Step by step by step on up. What can you do? What can't you do? Vulnerability often depends on the background and experience of the assessor. And that's kind of what we were talking about. What the assessor as well as the threat agent, how much can they do? Risk assessment, determining the damage that would result from attack and the likelihood that the vulnerability is a risk to the organization. This goes back to some of the other things that we talked about. One was the division of duties where no individual could do a whole job. Each of them did parts of it. Really highly secret activities in the government are broken up that way, so that very, very few, obviously somebody at the very top has to know everything, but generally a group of planners, developers, whatever, do their portion of the job. Somebody else does another portion. Somebody else does another portion. And people that are more trusted put the whole thing together. So how much would result, and this table's in the book, the result, no impact. What if somebody stole those machines that have been stacked back there, and I'm going to keep going back to them, stacked back there for how long? Has anybody touched one since we've been in these, 4 or 5 courses consecutively? I don't think so. So could we probably say that they're a no impact?
They can work.
No, the answer is I don't know. They're there for the A+ class to take them apart and put them back together. So they should boot. They should boot. Some of them don't have hard drives. Some of them are missing parts. I think the answer is some of them do and some of them don't, so I don't know. Catastrophic vulnerabilities that are ranked as catastrophic events. What would be a catastrophic event? Airplane crashing in the building. Hopefully we're not here. It could happen. How would we recover from that? We have a hot site, right? Hot site. How much does a hot site cost?
Probably a lot.
Probably a lot.
You better have like a cold or warm
Cold site or maybe a warm site? He's got all those terms down, doesn't he? What's a warm site?
Less than hot. No, it's got
Less than a hot site.
but it's not running.
Got the equipment. Does it have the equipment or does it just have the utilities?
I think you might just have the utility.
Yeah. What's a cold site? We've kind of thought about going someplace. Cold site doesn't have it. It's just got a building. Yeah. You may have, or you may actually have purchased the right to lease some space, for instance, on a short notice. If that happened, cold site really doesn't have anything in place.
The hot site you'd be up like within
Hot site should be. Hot site shouldn't even be a day. Hot site should be immediate because a hot site should be a complete mirror of the production site, which means that all the servers would have to be there, all the machines would have to be there, all the routers would have to be there, have the routes in them, all the data would have to be there, so that you could just walk over to the hot site, sit down, and start doing your job. It's going to be really, really expensive. How much is each of these things going to be worth? With catastrophic, how are we going to recover from those things? Catastrophic, everything goes away. Calculating the anticipated loss is helpful to determine these things. And I think you had these terms, didn't you? Single loss expectancy and annual loss expectancy? No?
Yeah, there's 2 questions. I don't think they're on the test. They're in the bank.
They're in the bank?
They don't say that, but they get you to figure out.
They get you to figure that out, don't they? Yeah, different amounts. So single loss expectancy, the monetary loss every time a risk occurs. So every time something happens is a single, and that makes sense, doesn't it? What was your single loss expectancy for your shoes?
I got like $40.
$40. $40. Single loss. $40. Let's just take that one. Let's don't put all the other stuff in. So then the annualized loss expectancy would be what? How many times do you expect that to happen in a year?
I ain't never gonna have money to buy no more shoes.
Not buying more shoes. So yours is going to be once in a lifetime. But what if it happened once a quarter? Then it'd be 4 times a year. Then it'd be $160 a year. Can we do that with our information systems? Can we say we're just not going to share anything? We're just not going to make it available. That would certainly reduce the single loss and the annual loss expectancy, but it also would probably reduce your revenue stream. So single loss is a one-time, and annual is how many times do you expect it to occur over the course of a year. And this is what they actually have you do, and is they give you a single and ask you how many times it's going to occur, and then do the annual. Risk mitigation is to determine what to do about the risks. And we're going to put a hard top on Adam's Jeep so that they can't unzip it anymore. Or take the shoes out or not buy any more shoes. Don't have it there, but buy a car. That would do something because it would have. But then it don't lock them, right, Robert? So options when confronted with a risk, we can diminish it, transfer it, or accept the risk. And you accepted the risk. Transfer the risk is when we buy insurance. Diminish the risk, put the hard top on. Or is the risk still there? Then they probably throw rocks, yeah. That's break the window or whatever else. Steal the key or just try the lock to see if it's unlocked.
I know, they were very nice.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. At least they didn't cut it.
Which at the time, my trunk was always unlocked. I'm like, if they had any more sense, they could have opened the trunk and just climbed through.
So you didn't mitigate the risk. You left the trunk open.
I normally door is locked, but I keep that unlocked because I lock my keys in my car all the time.
Do you?
So if I don't have that back door unlocked,
Yeah.
well, now I know how to get in.
Now we know. Yeah, just unzip it.
I don't keep nothing in it. That's the whole point. It's just that particular reason.
I'll take the pro tip. Where did it happen? Was it at home? Or?
In the parking garage at Jefferson Place.
Oh, really?
Downtown.
Downtown. Parking garage, which is probably a monitored area, right?
I don't know. I'm going to go back and look. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not really like a go about the pair of shoes. And Madison Glass.
Identifying the vulnerabilities through vulnerability appraisal, the current security weaknesses that could expose assets to threats. This is something that really needs to be an ongoing process, because just because you found what's there now, does that mean that that's never going to change? The answer is no on that one. That's going to change.
They're probably all on there.
Yeah. Two categories: vulnerability scanning and penetration testing. Vulnerability scanning, we're looking for vulnerabilities. And penetration scanning, can we take advantage of them? Typically used when an organization is trying to identify weaknesses that need to be addressed in order to increase the level of security. When you do vulnerability scanning, is it going to make a whole lot of sense to you? The answer to that's maybe. One of the things to look at is things like port 21. Why do all the scanning, and I think James was talking about his logs, what port were they scanning for? Were they doing the whole tree?
It didn't tell me, it only told me which ones they were trying to
Which ones?
attempt access.
Yeah. We used to get here thousands, literally thousands of scans a day, and probably still do. We don't see the logs anymore, looking for open port 21.
Did y'all have an open one though?
Hmm?
I mean, didn't y'all have it upload, download, and send your?
No, not port 21. We didn't have port 21 open. They kept looking for it, and never used it. Literally thousands of hits a day looking for an open port 21. No, we've never opened 21 to the outside. They have it at other locations and made inadvertent mistakes. That's why they look for them. Let's say somebody's working from home because you hired them to work from home, and now they need FTP to upload something. Or let's say we're putting a new website in, and they don't want to be bothered with the login, so you just make an anonymous FTP connection. And then let's say that you forget to take that anonymous FTP connection down at the end of the day. Somebody's doing a vulnerability scan. We just produced a great big hole. I would think so. Those things happen, and that's kind of paying attention. So scanning, and you should, I think, scan your own network occasionally. Because if we come up with one of these really odd ports, like sub-7 virus, you say, there's something odd going on here. Or if you come up with something other than the resources that you know should be running, then you can go investigate that.
I had Click Potato running last night.
Hey, what?
Click Potato?
Click Potato, what's that?
It's some adware.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I let my brother use my computer,
Ah!
I realized my CPU was running out of
Just going crazy.
yeah. And I checked the process of Click
Yeah.
Potatoes.
See? Simple way, and you just go delete the process. Now you got to go kill the whatever started it, right? So, yeah. Would he have been able on a scan, if that was running on a server or on a virtual machine someplace that nobody's paying any attention to, would you then be able to detect that with a vulnerability scanner? We would hope so, because what these things do typically is punch a hole in your firewall. So you should be able to see it from outside. When we say punch a hole in the firewall, what's the typical restrictions on a firewall? Established, it's called established, and related, which means that everything that goes out can come back in. But generally what we do with the firewall is keep everything out from inside, but let everything out from inside. Did that make any sense? Let everything in, no, let nothing in from outside. We don't let anything in. We lock all the doors, but you can get out. So if somebody installs one of these devices that creates a hole in your firewall and an access point to your network, oh, let's say like an AMI admin. Did that work? You can set a password up on it, but what if you hadn't? What if you're running AMI admin on a server? Could we, might we be able to find something in order to get onto these machines? And there's lots of things out there to do that. Tools include port scanners, network mappers, protocol analyzers, vulnerability scanners, the Open Vulnerability and Assessment Language. OVAL is the way you see that abbreviated. And password crackers. We've talked about password crackers, use password crackers. We're going to use port scanners, and they talk about a network mapper. I don't know that they actually have one in there. I'll get the name of that other one if you want to try out a network mapper so that it'll actually map your network for you, which is kind of nice for that to happen. Vulnerability scanners, that's what Nessus is, and then OVAL is an open source system to do these things. Primary form of address identification, TCP/IP, and uniquely identifies each network device. Once we've identified the device, what identifies the services that are running on that device? If you're looking for a web server, what port are you looking for? 80. If you're looking for sub 7, what port are you looking for?
27,
whatever it was. If you're looking for Doom, what port are you looking for? 666. Back orifice is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think, something like that. Back orifice, which is an exploit for Microsoft's back office. So we use the port number to find these things, and each datagram contains it. So we can look at those things. And we have different classifications of the ports. The well-known ports, 0 to 1023, that's where the 80s and the 443s and the 21s and the 23s and the 22s all come in. 110 and those sort of things. Registered ports, 1024 to 49151. So when we talk about the ephemeral port, the random port, generally going to be above 49151. I think typically they're going to be above 50,000. Applications that are not widely used, 1026 calendar access protocol is an example. There are things that are the widely used are in those port areas, and then the private port numbers 49.152 to 65.535. Private applications for a particular organization, they can be used for any application. Port scanners, knows a specific port. That port could be probe for weaknesses. We can probe based on port number whatever we want to do. So we find the port, we use a port mapper, port scanner to find the port, and then you try to find a vulnerability on that particular port. The port scanner is used to search to see what's open, what's available, what services are running on the machine. Most of us, I think, I do, you probably do, you turn off ping responses on your firewall. Is that a true statement? Can I still find you? Depends on how I do the port scan, because what does TCP do? We got three-way handshake business, right? What if you have a service there, a TCP service, and I send you a SYN packet? Then what are you going to do? Respond with a SYNAC. And then what am I going to do if I'm a port scanner? Then I'm going to hang up, send a reset. But what do I know? I got a live one now. Depends on how you do the scans. And that's what's kind of interesting, I think, about Nmap is there are different ways to do the scans. Determines the state of the port and the application known to be running on that port. The three port states are open, closed, and blocked. Open means that it is available. Blocked means it's blocked by the firewall. And closed, I think, means it's just not there. There's no service running on that particular port. Radmin, this is just a port. There are lots of port scanners available. This is one of them, but it tells us what ports are open. 110 open, POP3 on down the list on a particular IP address. And when you do the port scanners, scan 1060, 66, 253. If nothing else, it's because it's got so much stuff on it. And then if you have the opportunity, scan it from off-campus, ranger.ecpi.net, and see what the differences are. Do we trust you a lot more than we trust everybody else? Hopefully you're going to find the answer is yes. There should only be like 2 or 3 ports open on it from the outside. I don't remember exactly. 5190, 80, 5190, and 9093, I think, are the only ones that are open. This is the scanning process, and again, this table's in the book. TCP connect scanning, if we're doing a TCP scan, then we try for the SYN. The SYN actually, if you'll answer us, and if we do that, then we know that there is a service running there. SYN scanning, instead of using the operating system's network functions, the port scanner generates IP packets itself and monitors for the response. Generates a SYN packet. What does a SYN packet mean? Trying to initiate a connection. The port scanner is open to the port, will respond with a SYN-ACK, and on and on and on. The TCP FIN scanning sends a FIN message without first sending the SYN packet. A closed port will reply, but an open port will ignore it. All these kind of little tricks. Weaknesses of the protocol, are they not? If nothing else, kind of oddities of the protocol. So closed port stealth attacks, various techniques, because the port scan is an incoming connection with no data. It is usually logged as an error. A stealth can tries to fool the logging services. So what do these things do? And you can kind of specify, at least in Nmap, you can specify the type of scan that you want to use. Network mappers, tools to identify all the systems connected to the network. Utilize TCP/IP, ICMP protocol. ICMP is more than just ping and ping reply. ICMP has like 16 different flags in it. So you can use it for a number of different things. Ping is the one that, ping and trace is the ones that we know from it. This is a network mapper text output, and this is a network mapper visual. This one actually means more than this one, doesn't it? For real? It gives you a much better idea of what's going on with these things. And there are some of these that are open source. I don't think I have any of those in the utilities. Protocol analyzers, sniffer. We've looked at those a little bit. Back to Windows, when you use Network Monitor, what we're talking about is looking in the packet. What's available in the packet? What kind of information is available in the packet? Can fully decode the application layer protocols. And these are things that, if you're running one of these, you can get passwords out of them too, if they're clear text passwords. You can actually, if you're running a protocol analyzer and somebody's running FTP, since FTP is not a secure protocol, you can actually see the document that FTP is transferring. Read the document. All sorts of fun things here. Ether detect is this is just a different protocol. Each of the different protocol analyzers. Let me finish the sentence. Each of the protocol analyzers is going to look a little bit different. I think for the money, free. Wireshark still, at least in my list, it's top of my list. There are a number of other protocol analyzers available. Vulnerability scanner is a generic term. It's looking for vulnerabilities. This is going to be a Nessus. I guess probably we should set up maybe I'll do that, set up for you to scan a machine that has a NetBus running on it so that you can see what it does. It's not quick. It's one of those that you would start and not expect it to finish in 5 minutes, because it does a very thorough scan. Probably going to take 15, 20, 30 minutes to do a full scan of a machine. But to see what it does when it finds one of these things, or what it tells you. There's no bells and whistles, really. It just says that it's there. Most maintain a database that categorizes and describes the vulnerabilities that they detect, and you can download the updates to these things. That's all part of the subscriptions that you have. Buy for them. What is this one? This is a vulnerability scanner. This one says it's, what is it? Acunetics Web Vulnerability Scanner. I think the thing that you will find, and GFI LAN scan looks very similar to this one, the application threat, the things that it sees as the vulnerabilities. But I think that you will find, and I've asked you to scan once against yourself and once against Ranger to see what the differences are. If you have administrative authority, you can see an awful lot more than you can if you don't have administrative authority when you do these scanners. OVAL is promoted public and privately, standardizes the transfer of information to common language. This is an open source. It's an attempt to standardize what goes on with these things. Queries are accessed using a database. An SQL database uses XML, supports Windows, Linux, and Unix platforms. KBox is a commercial product. Don't look at this and think, oh, it's going to be there. And they'll send you a lot of information from Case, and they will try to sell you stuff, obviously. The first one of these that I ever saw was using it to distribute stuff to an Active Directory network, so they can be used to keep up to date as well as to do scanning. This one obviously is used scanning, GFI file, multiple buffer overflows, multiple overflow in the JPEG parsing engine. These are this one says it found 78 vulnerabilities, showing the first 100 or so on. Password crackers, we've looked at a little bit. Password cracker is a program that actually generates the hash and does a comparison until it finds something that matches. If we use rainbow tables, obviously going to be a lot quicker. What was it? The one was 2 years, or rainbow tables 28 minutes. The difference is rainbow tables already has all that stuff done. The tables are generated. Whereas if you go to a password cracker, it has to generate the hashes as it attempts to crack the passwords. Yes?
So are they specific to the OS, rainbow tables?
No, because it's just a hash. What it's doing is comparing the hash that you have with the generated hash. Now, specific to the OS, if you're getting to Linux, Linux uses Assault in their shadow password. So it makes it nearly impossible if you're not on that particular machine. I won't say impossible because it's probably not, but nearly impossible. It makes it very, very difficult because of Assault. The third element that's put in there is a random number or whatever else. Okay, enable, brute force attack. How are we going to do this thing? Chris can help you out here. Since he obviously been playing with it, that's good. What can we do with that thing? Shadow passwords are part of the Linux system. In Linux, the passwords file is available to anybody. The shadow passwords, which should be used, are not available, only available if you have administrative authority, and they do use Assault in order to make it more difficult. Microsoft has never found it necessary, they say, to do that. Shadow password file, it's just in a different location. Penetration testing, evaluating the security of a computer system or a network. What can we do? What kind of access can we get to these things? Do you love the name of this one, Satan?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. It was an open source tool that allowed lots of testing to go on. Improve the security of the network by performing penetration testing to determine the strength of the network. A lot of these tools can be used for either the good side or the bad side. Loft crack, L-O-P-H-T crack, pretty good password cracker. can be used. Chris took his hash and put it in a loft cracker, probably would crack it a lot quicker, or rainbow tables. Or it could be used by the network administrator to check the strength of the passwords in his domain, his Active Directory domain on his network, to see if need to change the password requirements.
You know, it's pretty crafty though. Kane doesn't allow you to copy and paste.
No.
You can type it in there.
Yeah, no, that is kind of a pain, isn't it? Satan would recognize several common security problems, report the problems without actually exploiting them, offer a tutorial that explains the problem, what its impact could be, and how to resolve the problem. And there are lots of tutorials that are available on what you need to do, what you can do to correct these things. So, what are we really looking at in this thing? What do we really talk about? What's the risk? How are you going to find the risk? How valuable it is. How much are we going to spend to protect it? Are we going to spend $10,000 to protect Adam's $40 shoes? $40 shoes, probably not any more than the hardtop for just for that, is it? $1,500 to protect the $40 shoes. We could have taken it away, then there would be nothing there to steal.
Doesn't matter, you're still going to leave the back unlocked.
Still going to leave the back unlocked, that's right. But who knows that?
We all know.
Just you guys. So now we've got a limited number of suspects.
Through social engineering, we can spread the word.
That's true. That's true. Social engineering, spread the word. The port scanners look for ports that are open. Once you find an open port, then you have to find a vulnerability that goes with that port. Guys come in here and say, oh, I'm going to find me a buffer overflow, and I'm going to, well, you got to have something that's vulnerable to a buffer overflow. And then once you get it in there, you've got to have a program that will actually do what you want it to do in that particular portion of memory. So it's not like you can just say, oh, yeah, I'm going to find one of these weaknesses, and I'm going to go get it. Just because there's a hole in the firewall, does that mean that there is a vulnerability there? Maybe not. Or does it mean it's something exploitable? If it was that easy, back to my original premises, if it was that easy, we'd all be on the beach in the Caribbean. First of all, now Chris is going to go get Mr. Geiss's password by intercepting it on Cain and Abel, right? No? Go slip a keylogger in. You got one?
No.
No? Oh.
You got one?
No.
If you have one, I can put it in there so I can go talk to them.
Are there questions? Going once, going twice.